for Tuesday, September 20th, 2021. First, is there any agenda changes or additions?
There are two. I'd like to appoint the Emergency Management Director and approve highway maintenance invoice.
Okay, next, approve the minutes of the select board meeting for September 7th, 2021.
So moved.
And moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved unanimously. Next, community concerns. Any community concerns out there in TV land? Hearing none, new business. And I think what we'll do is we'll get the invoice off the table first thing. It's our Clark Truck Center invoice. It's additional to your packet.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Here, I think.
Yeah, okay, it was also in the packet too, right?
And it's a practice that the board approves any invoices over $10,000.
Okay. Is this for the
Just for one of the trucks.
This is different than what's in our packet.
Correct.
okay.
This is a repair.
Oh, it's not, this is a repair.
There are a couple of truck issues
Yes.
tonight.
So it's already done? Yeah.
Now, the work is going to be done. So this is Luke's truck from the village. Luke's truck was supposed to have been replaced by now. His truck won't even start to be built for
Until the end of February.
the end of February at this
So we'll
point.
be lucky if we see it by next June.
This truck was supposed to have been one traded in. We were holding off on the maintenance to get the truck traded out, and then we get the new truck in. Now with the lengthy delay through the winter months, we were forced to get it into the shop for repairs, and the repairs came up over $10,000, so I needed board approval to authorize the expenditure.
Oh, yes. There's the second side.
Make a motion, we accept the offer, the bid, what is it? The bid of $11,354.77 for the repair of the truck from Clark's Truck Center.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the repair invoice from Clark's Truck Center. Is there any further discussion?
It'll be worth a lot more when you do trade it in.
That's wishful.
Oh, but the new one will last longer. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Discussion and support of article for marijuana dispensary.
With us tonight, we have a couple of folks that are here in support of that. Matt Lindemer and Damian Evans, and Damian brought a friend with him as well. So I'm not going to say partner or business partner or anything like that. I'll just leave it that you're all here for that. So they are here tonight looking to see the select board's appetite for an article to go into the town report to be voted upon. This is the one the legislature had passed in reference to marijuana dispensaries. This is the retail cannabis law that went into effect. And what the state has done is said that select boards or governing bodies can elect to not place these articles onto the town report voluntarily, which would then require anyone who wants it to be voted upon to go out and get the signatures required on an article and petition the board to put it on there. They're wondering if the board would be willing to put the articles voluntarily, let the articles go through so voters have the opportunity to vote on the issue. And I looked in the VLCT for guidance for the language that would be used for the articles. Is that VLCT?
Is that the Johnson?
Well, we had the Johnson as a sample, but the VLCT.
Okay.
Is
Oh,
it?
it's in the back. Okay.
There we go.
Looks like that.
Got it. Yep. So you can see at the top of the page, marked page 11 at the, there, it says opt in or allow cannabis retailers or integrated licensee establishments. If the town wants to authorize all legal methods of the sale of cannabis to the public, it should vote on the following. And I'm reading from Vermont League of Cities and Towns suggested articles. Okay? Shall the town authorize cannabis retailers and retail portions of integrated licensed establishments in town pursuant to Title VII, VSA, Section 863? That is the entirety of the article, which includes not just cannabis retail, but if you look at the definitions, and I added the definitions page into your packet, integrated licensee is defined as a person licensed by the board to engage in the activities of cultivator, wholesaler, product manufacturer, retailer, and testing laboratory in accordance with this chapter.
So do you be licensing them, or is it someone else doing that?
The state has, I don't want to get into comparing it to the Liquor Control Board, but it is much the same idea. So there's a marijuana control board or cannabis control board. And then locally, the select board acts just like we do with liquor license renewals. Okay, we go into the Liquor Control Board. This would be the cannabis control board at the local level is the select board. The question is whether or not you put the entire request as one article, which a yes vote would allow for not only retail sales, but also manufacturing, wholesale, product manufacturer, retailer, and testing laboratories, cultivators, so grow operations. What they have allowed is for you to separate that one article into two separate articles, if you so choose. And as it reads there, if the town only wants to authorize only cannabis retailers or retail portions of integrated licensee operations, or vote on them separately for any reason, it should use one or both of the following. So it separates out the cannabis retail to start with. So shall the town authorize cannabis retailers in town pursuant to Title VII, VSA 863? So plain and simple, that article would simply be about allowing retail cannabis. The voters would chime in on whether they would allow retail cannabis in Morristown. The second half is, shall the town authorize retail portions of integrated licensee operations in town pursuant to Title VII, VSA, Section 863. So the second portion of this, I gave you the definition of it because I believe that if we just put that out to the voters, they wouldn't understand what an integrated licensee operation is. And I don't like the wording myself personally because it seems like it's trying to hide something. There's nothing to hide here. It is simply another form of business venture where cannabis is there. But anyway, that's how they've written it and that's how they do it. You have the ability to have just the cannabis retailer article. You can have just the retail portions of integrated licensee operations, or you can have them both listed like that.
Would we be able to, on the ballot, be able to give the definition of integrated licensee?
No. That would be an education piece that would have to happen in advance.
So the question at hand right now is what?
So the question at hand is not even needing a motion.
Uh-huh.
These folks are interested in starting retail cannabis operations.
Right.
To my knowledge, that's all I've been talked to about with these gentlemen, is the retail cannabis operation. Manufacturing, I have to keep looking at the definition, because it's such a long list of stuff.
Yeah.
The cultivator, wholesaler, product manufacturer, retailer, and testing laboratory piece, no one has ever approached me with. Neither of
Right.
these two gentlemen approached me with this. It's simply about the retail sales.
Right.
So
That's
I
a
leave
much-
it to the
yeah.
board to decide. The decision tonight is, will you allow for one or both to be put on the ballot to be voted upon at the next official election here in Morrisville?
We don't have to decide which currently. If we wanted to do either or, to decide tonight which one we want to do.
Correct. You can decide tonight if you'd like to, but what they're looking for is whether or not they've got to go out and garner signatures for a
Okay,
petition.
all right, yeah,
So do they have to go out and get the petition and bring it to us that way?
right,
And if they do that, then they could have the verbiage be the entire piece in one. And if that's how it's presented, that's how it has to go on the ballot.
right.
If the board chooses to have just one of the two, that would be the indication you give to these folks, that's what it would be. If they wanted the second one, they would have to go out and get a petition with that language for the second part of that, to put that on the ballot. So this is just an indication to them as to what work they've got ahead of them.
So, yeah, I guess I'd like to hear from Matt and you folks about what you are looking for. Because to my mind, the cannabis retailer bit is much different than an integrated license. And that would open just a huge realm of questions.
Yep,
But
it
the-
does for
yeah.
sure, and
Mhm.
definitely like education is a huge part of it, but like we're willing to absolutely reach out to the community. It's something I feel that we've done with our farmers market stuff when we're out at market. I know the town is very behind this, a lot of the people I've talked to and everybody that they've talked to, so they wanna make this happen. I don't know if you remember, months ago, I had a petition start. I have this petition about half filled out. My wife and I have a 1-year-old son. I just wasn't able to like canvass the area and do as much out as I wanted to. So I ended up putting it aside after, if you remember a few months ago, I asked if the board would be in support of this. It seemed as though it was, and so I was like, okay, that's great. I was also under the impression that the special vote was gonna happen regardless of the school merger vote. So I was under that impression. So really what Eric and I and Todd Thomas and everybody's been so helpful and great with this is like, we just need to figure out how and when we can move forward, because we have to, applications for licenses are gonna come out on March 1st. October 1st is when we're gonna figure out how much that all costs. March 1st is when they come out, and we want, at least I would like, my application to be at the top of the pile. In order to fill out that application, I have to have a location that I'm working out of. In order to have a location that I'm working out of, the town has to have opted in, and I don't get any investor money until the town says they're gonna do this, and then we get a location, and then we go from there. So right now, kind of, everything is on pause. Not on pause, but I thought we were a little further in on this than I guess we are. So the question is, can we put it on the ballot? Are you support putting it on the ballot? I would support putting the whole thing on there. I know none of you know, but you have a processor in town already, not for cannabis, but Michael Laughlin behind the Magic Store there owns an amazing processing center, and he's awesome, and he does all my CBD processing. So you already have that in town, and he's looking to switch as well. He's not as active with letting everybody know, but he's looking to, make the change as well. So that's already here, and manufacturing, I would also like to get a manufacturing license. And you're like, oh, this is big manufacturing. The building that I'm looking at, I could include a kitchen in one side of it, and basically manufacturing means I can take product and turn it into food, whatever I want. That's the manufacturing part. And then I can then sell it to myself and sell it out of my retail store. So you can get multiple licenses, but for different things. I couldn't get 2 retail licenses, but I could get a retail license and a manufacturing license. So ideally, we wanna have the whole thing. And, yeah, I'd like to, after reading the paper last week, it seems like there's still a little up in the air about the special vote. If it comes down to the petition, we can get it back out, but I'm kind of just hoping that we at the very least tonight have the support of the select board to get this on the ballot when it comes up next, whether it be in November or in March 20th, puts a big kind of hindrance on us moving forward sooner than later. So November is our ideal date. We actually had a contingency offer accepted on a building when I thought the vote was gonna happen, and it was contingent on the town voting in November. That now, I felt like you shot my dog a couple weeks ago. It was a devastating select board meeting. So anyway, it's not, I mean, this is our issue as a business moving forward. But, you know, the sooner the town votes, decides whether they want to do this or not, the easier it's going to be for us business folks to kind of get the ball rolling and do it correctly. Because there's a lot to it, as you can imagine. The regulations on this, the whole point of this is being safer and just more controlled environment. So the regulations are just a ton. I could go for days on it. And we just plan to do it right. We want to do it right, and the more time we have to do that, the better it will be. So Todd knows the building that I would like to work out of. If you have any interest in asking about that, I won't leave it up for public knowledge now, but he does know. I believe Eric knows. I've been in contact with both of them, and they've both been really helpful. So we're moving in the right direction. Just kind of looking for the support and getting it there so we can make bigger decisions. Thanks.
Any comments from any of the board members?
I have questions. I don't know if I quite understand what's going on. If there's one already in town, how's there one already in town?
No, I'm sorry. So it's not for it's not for THC. It's not for cannabis. He's a lab guy, and he owns the equipment to extract for CBD. So he does our CBD stuff. It's all completely legal. He's not doing anything with THC now, but it could be that, and that's operating here. He doesn't do a ton of work, but it's pretty low key. Just so you know that it's here already.
So he's already here, and so the first sentence, shall the town authorize cannabis retailers and retail portions of integrated licensing establishments would fit that need?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
A little different. So what he's manufacturing now does not have THC.
Correct.
So
You have to go to the second part of it. Do that.
in order to
Well, my ultimate goal is retail. That's my real big picture. I would love to do manufacturing as well. Which would be the second part of it. I think that it should all be included. I believe their business name was Bailey. I'm assuming that's edibles.
Yeah.
So you know, they're gonna want that, the second part of that.
So the second part would be the integrated licensing establishments would fit your needs.
Yeah,
And
we're a baker.
We're a baker and we do want to open a dispensary. We've been actually talking to a realtor about a location in Morristown and everything. And just meeting some people and getting to know people and everything, and just wanting to start the business in the community. And cannabis is one of my passions. It has been for the past 6 years. I want to give back to the community and something that I'm passionate about.
So if we vote for both of these, how do we need to, just anybody can do it after that, or they have to get if we vote for it, say it's okay, then the state steps in just like they do liquor, right?
So you're not voting to approve either article. You're voting. Your indication tonight would be that you would allow for these to go on to the ballot, and that's all that we're talking about tonight. Because if the board decided to not allow either one of these folks would have to get petitions together and go out and get the petitions. Then that would force a vote within, Sarah, how many days?
I think it's 60.
So within 60 days of them handing in a petition, you'd have to have a vote.
Oh.
So if they handed it in November, with all the signatures on it, we have to have a vote by January.
Well,
So-
I take that back. It depends how it's phrased. If they could hand in a petition early that says for town meeting, and
Okay.
it could also be in the town meeting. Well, It depends on how the article's written.
That's a very good question, though, that I can answer for you. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
I
So-
hate to have a petition force us to have a special election.
That's why I was under the impression that the ATV thing had gotten a petition, so I was kind of riding that wave for a little bit, and that wasn't the case, so now we're here.
So what about the idea, this is just, looking at all of our options, about what about the idea of just starting out with the first section, authorizing cannabis retailers, and seeing how that goes, and then adding in the integrated licensee establishment afterward.
We can do that, but there's such different businesses that the reflection of a retail operation isn't gonna reflect like what a factory, a manufacturer, or a producer, or something like that, or a grow, for example, would do. It'd be
Right.
hard to look at something what a retail did over here and be like,
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
But I'm wondering too, when the CBD first started, people were growing hemp. The big problem was there weren't enough processors around. So all these farmers that put in the crops and whatever, that failed because they couldn't get their product to market. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And about a year after that, there was a ton of processors and not as much people doing flower. So right now, there are a lot of kind of mid-range processing out there. The big one is Northeast Processing, which is, it's in Vermont, but they kind of slowed down for a little bit because of what you were talking about, but the opposite. A year after that, like I said,
Okay.
there was less flower grown and all these people processing. And so now that Northeast Processing is going to be a very large operation, it sounds like they will be a big part of processing for most of Vermont. Sorry, I can't remember the question, but there will be a lot of, there should be enough processors. You're not going to find a shortage of people who know what they're talking about, who are ready to get in this industry if allowed. The question of can just anybody come here and do it and how many, that's a terrific question. The state is going to have limits, I think based up per capita. The Cannabis Control Board hasn't written everything still, so there's still a lot of stuff in the air that we need to figure out. But it's going to be a heavy regulated and done properly business that I know, like this gentleman said, like it will bring money, business, people to the town for sure.
Are there any deadlines with the legislature that it has to be voted on by a certain date or it goes away?
Spring of 22. We have one more town meeting through which these articles can be voted upon. After that, there's no bringing the articles back for a vote to the town. The way the law is currently written, doesn't even want to amend the law, but right now that's the way it's written.
So just a suggestion of voting one and then seeing how it goes and then.
Probably wouldn't work.
What do you need, a motion?
You're
Are we
welcome to
ready?
do it by motion if you'd like to. I don't know that we need a motion. I think what we're trying to figure out tonight is if the board, given this language here, would support having that on the ballot for town meeting. And if you do, then these folks know they don't have to go out and spend time getting all of the signatures they need on a petition. That's really the question we're looking to answer tonight.
I mean, I would prefer to see, I would prefer that we would have control over the fact that it got voted on during a town meeting, where there could be a public forum and like ample opportunity for people to weigh in. And I would also prefer to see it split up into the two separate articles personally. Because I mean, just because I'm curious about like what bigger issues that like manufacturing and processing might bring up. It might not. It might be a non-issue, but like the character of a retail operation to me seems like in keeping with like the size of our town and you know, like a kind of a quaint downtown sort of feeling, whereas like manufacturing and processing, like I just am curious to know like what the limitations on that would be, like how big things would be allowed, you know, how like what volume we would allow, and if that's something that would fall under our purview, you know, like would we be regulating that? Would that you were saying that was based on per capita? So I think it just like the whole like manufacturing and processing to me raises like more questions that maybe like the town might be more in support of like, okay, we're happy to have a dispensary or a bakery, but we're not sure about the rest of it. And so I would like to, like personally, I think it would make sense to split it up like Johnson did, where we could address both issues, you know, kind of with open eyes, you know.
Do you have any indication of when the cannabis board is gonna come out with
So
more information?
October 1st, we should be getting a lot of information. On October 1st, we will get the different licensing tiers. And that will say, you know, there are different tiers of the retail business you can buy into, or the processing business, or manufacturing. So the higher the tier, the more expensive the license is gonna be, and the more you're gonna be able to do. So October 1st, we get to know the tiers, we get to know how much they're gonna be, and also when they will be available. I know mine won't be until March 1st. Growers will be earlier because they are going to be legal to put plants in the ground on July 1st. So if you haven't heard from anybody about growing, I don't expect you will, at least until the year after you put this through maybe. I think a lot of people, if they're smart, a lot of people who want to get into the industry are sitting here right now. To Jess's thing, what's going to happen here is if the town votes yes. Let me read how my lawyers wrote it real quick. It's a little different, but shall the town of Morrisville permit the operation of licensed cannabis retailers and integrated licensees subject to such municipal ordinance and regulation as the select board may lawfully adopt and implement. That was the way my lawyers wrote it. And what's going to happen is that if the town votes yes, and this is why I've been talking with Todd a lot, is because the Cannabis Control Board and the state have written guidelines isn't the right word, but they've written, you know, basic things like you have to be 1,500 feet away from the school, all that. But that's not a rule. When the town votes yes, it's going to be up to you guys. It's going to be up to Todd. It's going to be on you to decide how many we want. You say, yeah, okay, they voted it in. We want one. We want two. We don't want, you know. So this is all going to be on Todd for zoning and you guys for making decisions on what you want here. So there's not going to be any pressure after the town votes in from the state to. You're not going to see people, the state's doing a really good job about not getting outside Vermont people into the business, because there's a lot of big cannabis business out there. So they're, at least so far, they're doing a good job of keeping it grassroots Vermont. Hopefully it stays that way. But ultimately, you guys are going to have the decision on how you want this to be voted in. So you have more control than I think you know, because it really hasn't been described yet, but you will have options as far as what you want to do.
So that sounds good to me that way. And
Would it make sense if we waited till our meeting on the 4th of October, so we had this information, excuse me, that comes out the 1st? So we have a little bit better handle on what we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, by October 1st, I think both of us would be able to tell you what tier we're looking to buy into and what that could look like at least. So we
can
can
we give him a heads up on how we feel about him having a petition?
Yeah, that's what the
That's
bottom line here is.
That's what he wants to know.
Right.
Because if they need a petition, they probably.
I have it half filled. It's been a really busy summer, so I didn't get all the way there and COVID and everything. So yeah, kind of looking for the support on that end too.
So do you just
Well,
need consensus of?
Just looking for consensus. I mean, our board is as good as its word. And I have no issue with the board said tonight, we don't have a problem with these articles going forward. Jess has said, I'd like to see the two separated. That's fine. I would look at the town of Johnson's articles after hearing what your attorneys wrote. The only difference really between those two is that there's a specific mention of the Vermont law, which regulates cannabis. So, I mean, the town of Johnson did a good job of putting those together because it does mention the Cannabis Control Board, the town of Johnson Selectboard. You know, we just changed out from the town of Morristown and add a reference to the law that regulates.
If you include the select board having decisions on it, people in the town will be more comfortable in general, being like, okay, the select board's gonna control this.
Through ordinance, certainly.
I'm in favor of going on the ballot
Without a petition.
without a petition. Yeah, I don't want the
Me
petition
too.
driving
Right.
the
No, I think
vote.
we're better off to
Yeah.
drive the cart. And you'd prefer the two
I can go along with that.
ballot,
The
Yeah,
two,
you're right.
the two articles.
the two articles,
Yeah.
yeah.
2 articles and no petition.
So I guess you pretty much got your answer.
There you go.
Thank you, awesome, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Eric has my
Thank-
email and phone number, any questions or anything, I like to think I know quite a bit about this, so please feel free to ask me, I'll try to answer them best I can. If I don't know.
Yeah, if you could just forward us that information you get after the 1st of October, it would be very helpful as well, I think.
And I also sent you all a little presentation a few months back, if you check your emails, maybe you guys
Yeah.
can pull it up.
Yeah.
There's just some information I'll let you leave for now. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
good
Mike.
presentation, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask a like housekeeping question? Do people need to come up to the mic and state their name? We're mic'd well for everyone. Okay,
It's very sensitive, so
Okay.
pick up
We've-
anybody.
okay.
We've already done some preliminary cautioning of some of our regulars.
Oh, good.
That the microphone, when you're speaking into it, has a sound dampening device in there, so the speaker is the one being heard, but when they stop speaking, it's a very sensitive microphone. So,
To know. I can't imagine who you're talking about.
But it would be, I agree with Jess, it would be a good idea if people introduce themselves when they do speak. Is there anyone else that wants to discuss the cannabis issue? Is everybody happy?
Thank you.
Okay, next, discuss Copley Terrace access road.
and my apologies, I did not grab that in time to put it under old business, because we did discuss it at the last meeting. Everybody has land use permit, Copley, thank you. I looked at Sarah, Sarah keeps me organized going forward, so. The land use permit that you see here is the one that Copley Hospital got for, when they built the terrace, the Copley Terrace. And the question that came to be, I'd come to you asking for, your feeling about the 1,000-foot measurement in the parking lot. And Gary sent me back with some homework to do on their stormwater.
Thank you.
So if you flip back a couple of pages, about 4 pages back, 4 or 5, in that land use permit, you'll see a section that says water pollution at the top, and then all the way down, stormwater runoff will be collected and distributed by means of the parking lot catch basin depicted on Exhibit 5 towards that existing culvert located on the adjoining golf course lands shown on Exhibit 14. Sizing for this system is described on Exhibit 9. I have requested all those exhibits be forwarded because this is the only thing I received from the hospital, and I think they're working on getting those exhibits, the engineering, design stuff. But this was done in 1982, so I think it predates some of the stormwater permitting that was going on. That was all a part of the land use permit process.
Did you ask because there's not culverting around that?
Well, I'm
Because I
just-
looked at it today and I did notice.
I don't think there's a problem with it, I'm just asking because I think if the town takes the road over, they're also gonna end up taking over the stormwater system. And I think over at Jersey Heights, the town is gonna have to do some substantial upgrading of the stormwater system over there. If memory serves me correctly.
So yeah, that's a very complex way that's going forward. in the Jersey Heights. I don't know if you want me to dive into that or not, but it's,
Right, no,
you know,
no.
this is it's pretty involved, and it has to do with,
I guess all I'm getting at is I don't want it to happen
understood.
again.
Yep,
I mean, I don't wanna have to redouble our efforts and
right.
because stormwater is becoming way more stringent,
It is,
and as time goes on, it's gonna get worse,
it is.
or better, whichever the case may be.
Todd has told me that this does not meet the 3-acre criteria for impervious surface. That doesn't mean the state won't back off their 3-acre requirement down the road and make it a 2-acre or 1 acre.
Right, I understand.
Yeah, so anything we take over road-wise is gonna be subject to all of those regulations.
I mean, I certainly don't have a problem with taking the road over. I was just concerned with the.
It would have been a question that would need to be answered once we start the process of that, of the road acceptance by the town.
Right.
At this point, they're just looking to get the read on the 1,000-foot measurement, if you will accept that that is all part of the road. And if so, then they meet the criteria for taking over the road. As part of that criteria, it has to be 1,000 feet in length. And if you'll accept that measurement, then they're gonna go ahead and start the road naming process, which is preliminary to the acceptance process. We won't even be plowing this winter. This is gonna take a while. Their timeline's built into this. So as long as I can call Mark Sutton up at the hospital and tell him the board accepted the 1,000-foot measurement of that roadway, so they met that criteria, we have your stormwater permit stuff, just looking for the diagrams, and we'll go forward from there. He will start that road naming process, which is going to impact a lot of people with their change of address down through there. So that's why they didn't want to do this unless they had a read from the board on the 1,000 foot. If they didn't meet the criteria, then they weren't going to bother.
Well, and Kevin testified last meeting that he was fine with it, and that the road and sidewalks are in great shape, and everything was built to town specs. So I guess the only question was the 1,000 foot.
Correct.
And then everything's okay with the snow station? Yeah.
They know that they're going to have to give us an easement. They'll do the legal paperwork and give that to us once we get to the acceptance stage, that we're not even there yet. So as long as I know the board's okay with a 1,000-foot measurement being what it is, then I will tell Mark to go ahead and start the road naming process.
Okay. I think we're safe. Everybody's good with that, 1,000 feet?
I don't know if we need more roads and sidewalks in Tendo right now, especially with one that's gonna have issues later on, but I think we gotta think about it.
That's a good point.
Well, I guess my thought is that the town is growing, expanding in most every direction, and I understand at some point we're gonna reach saturation point with the crews that we have, and, but
Unless you're gonna
It's the
pull
it's the way
the
it
drawbridge.
right,
Well,
unless we're gonna build a moat or something.
the other thing is, it's gonna disrupt a lot of people, when you do so, their address is gonna be changed and all this, because, you know, I'm thinking, what's the reason they're doing it? I mean, why can't they keep it the way it is, been there?
I don't know the answer to that question. I know they petitioned the town there.
I have the two issues. I have the issues of disrupting everybody and changing their address. It's quite a process. And also taking over, because one thing I was gonna bring up their budget here, and I mean, we're starting to get too many sidewalks, and even if you buy another rate, I mean, you just keep putting sidewalk after sidewalk. Because one thing, this machine we bought, we were told was gonna last 20 years, I mean, it didn't last 5. So,
Which machine was that?
that $180,000 piece of.
The holder. They're
But
pretty
in
much,
about 5 years, it ended up down there for a total
Rebuild, yes.
and we were told when the new guy sold us it was 20 years. That's just my thoughts.
I wonder, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
My question is also, I think I sort of brought this up in the last meeting, if it sets some sort of precedent, because to me, where like I want to be in support of, I think it's our obligation to be in support of everyone in our community. It seems like that particular area is sort of like a private organization. Like it's, it's like part of the whole like Copley, organization campus. Yeah. And so to me, that seems almost more like a private entity. And I'm not sure if that sets a precedent that we take over private roads. I don't know. I don't know the answer to it, but that would be my concern. Maybe piggybacking on Brian's.
And if we really thought that we needed to go deeper, I think we ought to have a site visit. Because when we sit here and say, okay, it's 1,000 feet, that's okay. I'd like to see it in person, because we have to have, before we take them over, a site visit.
Correct. But again, this is a little bit of cart before the horse because of the 1,000 foot being, right at the 1,000 foot mark.
Right.
Mark understood that you folks have a road acceptance policy, and it identifies the length of the road at 1,000 feet. There have to be 3 structures on the road. It has to be built to road specs, 24 feet wide, 2 foot shoulders. There's all kinds of different, your policy specific as to how the road how it's built, and the length of it, and how many buildings minimum have to be on it.
Certain amount of gravel, certain amount of this and that.
Sure. So
Yeah, right away.
if the road fits the policy, then they would go ahead with the road naming, because they have to name the road before they can come to the town to ask for you to take it over. Once the road is named and they come to make that request, then it starts a clock. The site visit is a part of that. That's a next step down the road.
And we're setting the precedence by accepting a piece that's not really there, but we're gonna accept it as if it is.
Well, that's the question. That's the question before you.
Yeah.
Is do you define the road as ending down there by the back of the parked cars, or you do only define it as to where the road splits? And I had the map from last time, if you want to take a look at it. You can see the Y in the driveway. The road itself continues straight down through. There's a left-hand Y that goes off to a side parking lot. And the question before the board is, are you identifying that road as an 850-foot road that stops at that Y intersection, or that left-hand intersection? Or are you identifying it as a 1,000-foot road which ends behind the parking spaces where the snow would eventually be piled anyway?
The 1,000 feet ends just right at the beginning of that turnaround in that parking lot,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. If the road was 1,100 feet, we wouldn't be having a discussion.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the road meets all the criteria. That one criteria is the one that I needed to read from the board as to whether they would accept the 1,000 foot measurement, and that would all be the road. So we would be responsible for that 1,000 feet.
So by looking at the picture, like I said, not seeing it up there, I don't know why that wouldn't work, the 1,000 feet. That doesn't mean I'm gonna pave the road in there, because, but if they want to start, but then they're gonna change everybody's nail.
But, they have to in order to ask for the road to
Right.
be taken over. So it's part of the process.
Cause that probably wouldn't be an issue as far as changing our rules, because it's a straight line out through there to that 1,000 feet, so. And that's it's part of the loop there. So I don't know if that would bother them, but there's other issues to do, so.
It seemed, when I drove there, honestly seemed like a stretch to me. Like I was like, oh, this seems like a parking lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
Yeah,
I'm sure, but I've been so busy.
yeah.
So we don't have to make any decision.
Well, this would be the second
would
thing we
like for
talked
us
about.
Yeah.
The decision I'm
Yeah.
looking for is one of, will you accept that 1,000 feet? Or do you not accept 1,000 and calling it 850 so it doesn't meet the criteria?
So how do you know the road built to specs? It seems like a few times that we've been to a place where somebody else wrote it and they actually bored down to make sure there was the right amount of gravel and stuff. Because again, when we're taking over a road, then it's our road from there on out. So if it's not that, all of a sudden it's muddy and spring, we're gonna be out there fixing it. So, I mean, up there, I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm saying about taking over roads.
It doesn't change my birthday one day left or right. I just need a reading so I give it to Mark. That's all Copley's asking for, is if you accept it, they'll go through the process of changing the address, and they'll go for the process of asking you to accept the road. But if you're not willing to accept the 1,000 foot measurement as that's what it is, then you'll understand as well that you deemed it wasn't 1,000 feet, it was only 850 because the road ended at that intersection there. So, and then they won't ask us. But that was why I came to you the way I did. It's just, if the road meets the criteria of the 1,000 foot length, they were going to start the rest of the process.
Are you asking Brian for a site visit?
Yes.
Well, but that,
And it don't have to be, maybe we can just meet up there.
you could go up individually and take a look at it. Certainly,
Yeah.
absolutely. To organize a site visit is just taking more of your time.
And I'd like to see the
Okay.
culvert you're talking about. Look at that.
Yeah, I think Kevin's already investigated all that, so.
So it's investigated that we don't have to do anything to it later on?
We'll define later on.
Okay.
The next 30 years, we'll probably say.
Oh, no, 30 years, but all of a sudden this stormwater stuff starts hitting us and.
Well, I can see us having to do some mouring around outlets. That's gonna be a common practice here for the next few years.
And I would think to take over a road right now, we should make sure whoever's road we're taking over, they did it before, or put something in there saying they'll take care of it. I mean, the taxpayers, I know somebody just got their taxes today, and it's $400 higher than it was last year. It's hard to explain to them how come.
The school board meets twice a month, just like we do. And I would suggest they go and sit at the school board meeting.
That's what I was circling on his taxes, I go, look, right there.
Last year, the state changed the format, I know we're talking about something different, but changed the format of the bill so that the municipal amount is on the left, and the education is on the right. So it's very clear, as opposed to before where it was all mixed and you got one total.
And we have no control over that part of it.
No, we got a lot of phone calls today, though.
I haven't got mine yet.
I
so
haven't
maybe no.
either.
All right, so what's the consensus of the board on 1,000 feet?
Wait till next meeting. I'd like to go look at it. Make sure.
Yes.
Well, they're not there.
I haven't yet.
Do we not,
Sorry to catch you mid-bite.
I was up there, I've been up there a while ago, but I'm not going back and look at it.
I guess that's the consensus.
We'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back.
Give you a chance in the next
meeting.
2 weeks, take a look at it. We'll
Yep.
bring it back the next meeting.
I'll make sure I do it.
Well, I may have to leave earlier than I expected. I apologize for having to keep looking at my phone, but my wife's in the hospital, so I said she can be discharged in an hour or so.
So you can stay till 9?
Is she at UVM?
She's at UVM.
Oh, no.
I told her she was a cab, but she didn't think that was very funny.
No.
I'll be there.
The rest of these issues, Gary, are not earth movers, so if you need to go,
Yeah, I
We
probably
can
better,
just have a consensus of the board, and we can get through these last items without.
if I want a place to live next week, I probably better.
Oh.
Cause she's gonna be all better now, that's gonna be good. Well, I apologize for having to leave, but I thank you for putting up with me, and, hope I know the rest of the meeting will be in good hands with Brian.
I hope your wife feels better.
Yeah, I think everything else is pretty straightforward.
It is.
Okay. Approve the grant aid.
Yep, the next agenda item is the grant and aid paperwork. Do you have a signature page for that, sir? So this is the same money that we used on the Garfield Road project this year.
Uh-huh.
It's the fiscal year 22 grant and aid. There's a little over $25,000 that we've been awarded for next year. This is simply signing the paper, what's the governing body that authorized.
The motion says that you should sign it, they authorize you to sign it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we can do that. Do they have the motion?
Yeah, do you all want to discuss it? Okay. I move that the town of Morrisville approve the grants and aid fiscal year 22 grant from the state of Vermont AOT and authorize Eric Dodge to sign on the select board's behalf.
Second.
Any discussion?
We don't have a number in here, we're supposed to put a number in here.
Oh, you mean in the
It's not on
motion?
there.
The
motion
dollar
or in the
number
The
is,
dollar doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's just that we're accepting the money.
Because it's 25,600 from the, right here, correct? From the grant agreement?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't have a problem getting money.
No.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Well, are there strings attached to it?
Always.
So the money itself, what we, on the Garfield project this year, we had $30,000 of grant money to use. We had $7,000 of in-kind money that we had to put with that. Now it's through the use of our trucks and our staff and whatnot. The project right now is at right about 70,000. Kevin, right? About $70,000. So we've met our in-kind plus, but the $30,000 went to purchase the stone to armor the ditches and the outlets and the culverts. We went to purchase a number of the culverts themselves. So it saved us $30,000 on that project. And it was, it's one of those, I talked to you before about them being hydrologically connected. So on the A&R map online, all our roads have these beautiful fuchsia colors. Well, they're beautiful, but they're not good. So fuchsia is not the color you want green. Our Garfield Road will be turned green on the A&R map because we have completely taken care of that road this year with the stone line ditches and the stone line outlets on the culverts. So that starts us on the path to compliance with Act 64, which by 2036, we're supposed to have all of our roads in compliance. I'll tell you that that's a far stretch for the amount of money. The town of Stowe has 93 miles, roughly 93 to 95 miles of roadway. The estimate done by the firm that they hired to do their roads inventory for them to complete the projects by 2036 is over $4 million to have their roads in 100% compliance. It's a vast amount of money, and no community has that kind of money. You can't raise that money. And the grant monies they're giving us isn't even close to dropping the bucket, but it's something. So we're going to continue to do due diligence moving forward to these projects. We'll use the grant monies and use them as wisely as we can to get the greatest impact from them. So we're going to meet with Rob Moore on Thursday, Kevin and I are, to discuss next year's grant money and possible projects. You're going to hear me talk to you during budget season about a roads inventory. We need to do the roads inventory in Morrisville, which, like Stowe, will be best done by hiring a firm to do that. There is some grant money to help offset that cost, up to $8,000. I presume that our cost will be somewhere close to what Stowe's were, because we have a little bit more mileage than they do, and theirs was in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. So you'll see the dollar figure as a line item in the budget. But we'll get the roads inventory done as we need to by law in order to receive the grant money. I got the cart before the horse a little bit on this one, but we're the only town left in the county that has not had their roads inventory completed. So that is a project for next year. But we're going to talk to Rob about projects, and we have all our storm drains here in the village that empty out on the riverbanks. If we armor the outlets of those storm drains, that takes anything that contributes water to that storm drain and turns it green. The village is the highest concentration of impervious surfaces. So the most runoff, the nasty stuff they don't want Lake Champlain, mostly is going to come from your urban area of town. So I'm going to talk to Rob about the feasibility of using the money that we have, which is it's less next year than it was this year, but I'm going to use it to try and armor those outlets in the storm drains to try and get as much impact as I can in a wide area of the village. We used the Garfield Road this year because we were already in the mid-project when this money came to light. And it was a perfect opportunity for us to get some of that cost defrayed. So.
Does the village get any of this grant money?
No, this is just us getting it from the MC because we're the highway.
Okay.
The village doesn't do the highways.
And then just two questions. So I did kind of gloss over it, but it does say match in kind would be $6,400.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like I said, we're at 70,000 on this
Yeah.
project right now, and 30,000 of it is grant money. So we've
Right.
got our in-kind match for this year. Pretty good.
Yeah. And this is for next year.
It is
Okay.
fiscal year 22.
And who is Rob Moore again?
Rob works for Lamar County Planning Commission next
Okay.
door,
Yeah.
and he is managing the grant this year. Excuse me.
I think you mentioned him
Yep.
before, but yeah. Okay.
Yep. They've changed their format a little bit for next year. AOT is going to handle the grant processing, but Rob is still going to be. He will have to approve the projects, and he will have to do the final inspection to make sure they were done properly before we get reimbursed. We'll still be working with Rob.
Okay.
He's been great to work with.
Cool.
And he sent me an email on Friday and gave a great compliment to our highway department. They were very easy to work with and did a great job out there on the Garfield Road.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. So passed. Okay. Accept resignation of the highway employee.
This is Michael Buchanan. He has taken a job with Water and Light. It was a significant raise in pay and a great opportunity for him to further himself in a career. And we wish him well. He was a great employee. He was in our grader this year. He learned how to run it, done a great job. It's a loss for us, but I don't hold anybody back that wants to better themselves like that. Then it's a good move for him.
So we not accept it.
Yeah, you don't have to, but.
I move we accept the resignation of Michael Buchanan to be his last day of employment on September 23rd, 2021, with regrets.
I second.
Any further discussion? Maybe a thank you. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Approve the bid for the Ford 250. Regular cab.
So, I sent out 4 bids, I only got 2 back, that seems to be, what's been happening lately. My recommendation would be to go to the Union Bank that has the lowest interest rate of 1.9%.
motion, we accept the bid for the Ford 350 regular cab truck. And do I say $77,468 and to work with Union Bank on the loan?
I second the motion.
Any further discussion?
So, I will email Tina on the event this week, you'll have to come in and, sign paperwork, because we're trying to get the money early next week for,
So come in this week to sign?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm away at a conference
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much the rest of the week,
Mhm.
but, I'll get word to you somehow when it's here.
Maybe even a text with this. That's a good nudge.
Yeah, I don't have your number, do you?
Oh, you don't?
No.
I do.
I'll pass Sarah or Misty to get a hold of you.
Are you gonna leave it someplace so that we come in?
You, yeah. I can leave it at,
In the box?
the mailboxes.
That'd be great.
Okay. Appoint NDF members.
Did
Peter
you?
Merrill and Stan Guy.
Did you vote
We didn't vote. I don't think, did we?
Oh,
on the Union Bank, being the one that's gonna process the loan?
Yes,
They voted?
We did. We did.
of course I did.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
well, I think he made the motion and then we discussed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
I
Aye.
stopped you too.
I interrupted, I apologize.
No,
She's keeping a better check. She said we did.
Thanks.
Okay,
These are the motions for the next one.
now we'll go to appoint NDF member Peter Merrill and Stan Guy.
Peter and Sam, their term expired in the spring. It was an oversight. They're from the MDF. They just need to extend their terms for one more year.
I'm sorry. What is the MDF?
And I apologize for using acronyms. That's the Morrisville Development Fund.
Thank you.
It's a fund that has a little over $500,000 in it. It is meant as a gap loan to small business folks that are starting up, and they may have received the bulk of their financing through an institution, but need just a little bit more to get over the hump to make things happen.
Great.
But they're in the process right now of restructure kind of thing. They're redoing the bylaws, and so they're moving forward.
Cool. Great.
I make a motion to appoint Peter Merrill and Sam Guy to the Morristown Development Fund for a one-year term.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the highway tandem motion.
So this was before you, tedious. However, the manufacturer has now informed Clark's Truck Center that they are adding a $500 surcharge. So there's an amended dollar amount that we need to have you revote so that the dollar amount matches the actual cost of the truck.
What's the surcharge?
Nobody knows.
Oh,
The manufacturer sent it down the pipeline and said, we want $500 more, and we're calling it a surcharge. And what we're told is that March 1st next year, manufacturing is gonna put a whole bunch more surcharges on. Still don't know what they are.
Wait, is this the highway tandem motion?
It is.
Okay. Sorry, I feel lost. Is it in here?
It's on page 14.
Okay.
The motion is on page 14.
Oh, tandem. Gotcha. That's the name of the car.
Now, did we go out to bid on that truck?
We did.
And did this put it over?
You-
Okay. It's still cheaper.
It's still cheaper.
Just wanted
We just need one of you to read the motion on page 14.
I can do it.
Okay.
I move to amend the motion to purchase the 2022 International Tandem from Clark's for a total purchase price of $1,331.
No.
1,000.
131.
I have to go back.
I like the way you think. But that's not gonna work.
That sounds amazing.
131,248, and I still said that wrong.
No, you did. You're right.
All right, and 75 cents to a total purchase price of $1,031, $820, 50 cents. I can't read this. Due to a new surcharge in fees, this includes a 7-year warranty, $50,000 to be utilized from the Highway Capital Equipment Fund, and financing the balance for 5 years.
We understand your intent. It's in front of us.
I'll feel back in 5th grade.
Is there
I second the motion.
there?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So passed. Approve pavement cut for Winter Street.
So this is another cart for the horse. At lunchtime last week, I drove down Winter Street because I saw a sign that said the road's closed. And when I looked down the street, the whole street was dug up. I really didn't remember bringing you guys a permit request for a street cut. So I talked to Mr. Clark down there, the owner of the property. They have 2 lots they've subdivided in that little meadow behind, well, it's now our bakery, used to be Peck's Flower Shop. And they were doing the water hookups. Minash was doing the work. And I went down and just had a conversation with him and explained that what he had was a curb cut that Todd had given him for the driveway access to the road. And he thought that that was the permit to get him to dig in the road. So this was simply me asking him to come down here, fill out the paperwork. The work has been completed. The road was compacted perfectly, and they've already paved over the cuts. The work is done. We're just, we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's on this one.
I approve the curb cut that Robert Clark had on 47 Winter Street.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So passed.
Do you mean, was it the horse after the cart? Because it already happened?
Yeah, kind of. It was a,
You know,
the cart's gone, the horse is gone, but the road looks great. Yes. It really was truly an oversight on his part. He wasn't trying to pull any shenanigans. But they did, Menashe did a great job putting the road back together.
Did we do the 2 agenda items that you had to add?
One of them, the other one is to appoint the emergency management director,
Oh, okay.
which I think you have a motion for that as well. Maybe here.
Oh, right here? All right.
usually it's not an issue.
I guess-
So Dan was your emergency management director. There is, the reason this has come to light, I hadn't thought anything of it, but formerly there were LEPCs throughout the state, the emergency planning commissions, and this was the Lamoille Emergency Planning Commission. So the LEPCs are being phased out, and they're replacing it with regional emergency management committees. The committees are going to be structured with 2 people from each community within the district. You'll have 2 votes at the table, no matter the size of your town. And 1 vote will come from the town's appointed emergency management director. The other one will come from a member of the town's emergency response. It can be police, fire, or rescue. And that's how the law was written. So that brought to light that I needed to be appointed as your emergency management director, but it also brought to light that towns like Waterville and Belvedere, who contract all their services, are going to have a difficult time finding that second person, so they have 2 votes at the table. The state's working on this. They're going to try and figure a solution out to it. But it really is there's a push kind of to get communities to lean on each other before we go hollering to the state. As this develops, and I'll come back to you with updates from the meetings, but what they're going to look for is for communities to get MOUs in place. Get your memorandum of understanding together so that it's almost like a utilities mutual aid. Road washes out, and we'll use French Hill just for lack of anything, just an easy one, because Johnson and Morrisville meet on French Hill Road. We call it Walton Road. And if Johnson has an event where they lose a section of their road to a rainstorm, and where they don't have enough equipment to get it repaired in a timely manner, they, rather than calling the EOC in Waterbury and saying, can you send us a couple of state trucks to help us haul gravel to repair this huge road cut we've got, they would probably first reach out with an MOU in place to us and ask us for assistance, or Hyde Park for assistance. And thereby we would fix it more locally without reaching out for state partners. The reimbursement would have to be worked out through the MOU. Likely I would see the town wanting, any of the towns would want immediate reimbursement for the bill, and then the town that's the victim of the environmental problem would do their process for reimbursement through, if it's a FEMA declaration or a state declaration, they would go through the process and wait for their money to come in. But this is kind of an offshoot of what they're doing, but it all has brought a great conversation to the table about relying on our neighbors more than we rely on the state, which we used to do a lot more. But anyway.
We used
More
to
to come.
rely on our neighbors more than the state.
Yeah,
Okay.
there used to be
Yeah.
a lot of different stuff going on. We didn't always have the equipment needed to do everything, and we would have an agreement where we would lend them a piece of our equipment, and then we'd use a piece of their equipment because we didn't have it. There was a lot of that stuff that used to go on that doesn't anymore, just for liability and costs and stuff. But MOUs can be drafted for this. So tonight, after that long-winded story, I'm just looking for you to appoint me as the Emergency Management Director for the town of Morristown.
I'll make a motion to appoint Eric Dodge as Emergency Management Director for the town of Morristown.
Not that I don't think you're qualified, but I just wanted to know, is that just like standard operating procedure that you would be our emergency management director, and that you'd be informed of all our, this is just for making plans for like emergency situations for floods and hurricanes and blizzards and that kind of thing.
Right. If
Okay.
an emergency declaration is had, I can tell you that right now, my involvement will be minimal. It'll be oversight. When there's an emergency declaration had, those two people right back there have more conversation than I do.
Right.
It's the finance department and the highway superintendent, because they're the ones that are documenting the damage to get the reimbursement to the town. So,
Right. Okay.
yeah, the emergency management director, very big titles, just simply means that if there's a meeting to go to, well, that's what you pay me to do. So
Right.
I would go to attend these meetings and then bring the information back to you, and we're not having our hourly rate employees having to go out at night from their families. And,
Right.
And you'd be the person that they would call, so you could call us if it was beyond your.
right. There's some statutory things during the event. It's usually the emergency management director that makes the call to the state EOC if there's a need for outside resources that you can't find locally. So.
And does that position have anything to do with like a grand plan for mitigating, or like doing some work around things we could do in the town to mitigate for, climate change and bigger storm events and that kind of thing? Or is that beyond the purview of emergency management?
The emergency management director is more inclined to be understanding of the incident command system, which is a structure that's in place during an event like that.
Yeah, okay.
It's more about directing that flow, and then exercises that may be planned by your regional EMCs to do a practice event, sand table, or it could be a live event type of thing. But as far as what you're talking about with climate change and how it's impacted the storms, the severity of the storms, Not so much.
Yeah.
There's a piece of that we're doing with the mitigation. Right now, we're in the process, we're near the end of the process. Every 5 years, we have to update our hazard mitigation plan.
Uh-huh.
And I've been working with Stephanie Magnan as our consultant, and we're pretty close to having that document completed. And that will be our 5-year update. We have emergency management plan here that expired this year that I have to get that updated as well. So there are plans that are in place that you hope you never have to go to, but they're guiding documents. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Cool. So it's basically you're the initiating a chain of response.
I would
And
probably
attending
it could be pulled into the chain of response.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
fire department may get a call, the highway department gets
Yeah.
called out for massive flooding or something like that. I would expect Kevin's probably gonna call in the middle of the night and say, hey, guess what?
Uh-huh.
Got a mess.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean I'd necessarily be the one to respond.
Right.
I'd probably be more in the way than I would be a help, so,
Right.
It's quite a document that goes with that. Right?
yes.
I mean, it's a list of everybody you might have to contact, at least the town pitcher.
Yeah, it talks about talks about our resources, properties that are in flood damage, that are danger, that are previously been flooded. There's a ton of information there.
Okay. Okay. Were we in the process of seconding the motion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were, no, you were.
I second the motion. After that, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approve the warrants.
Make a motion, we accept the warrants.
I second. Sorry, I second your motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting report.
Yeah, not even Gary. I don't think.
The filtration project out in the municipal parking lot has been postponed for this fall.
Okay.
The engineering is not complete, and they would not have time to do the construction of it before snow flies, and they wouldn't be able to get the pavement on afterwards. So they've decided to pick that up in the spring. And we're okay. We removed the planter out there. Kevin, they compacted that surface, so it'll be fine for the winter the way it is.
Does that affect the LHP project at all?
It does not. We're still on track. If they get the filtration done in the spring, which I presume they will, then we'll do the resurface of the parking lot and the restriping and the new directional flow of traffic, and have that all set to go before they even inhabit that.
All right, excellent.
We have a training here tomorrow, a leadership training put on by VLCT. The department heads are training. It's a morning and afternoon both. Sarah has very, very ambitiously taken on a wellness program here in the office, and has already started a Biggest Losers competition. It's ongoing. We have a workshop for stress reduction on Wednesday this week. And 3 times a week, she sends out words of encouragement, helpful tips on health issues. So she's taking this very seriously, and I think it's making a big difference as far as how much I'm spending on the chocolate jar. So it has not been going down nearly as rapidly as before. So thank you all for that cost savings.
That's only because EMS has been busy.
And we sent a letter out to LCPC in reference to the Quimby Tinker parcel. I haven't heard back yet, but that's still in the works. That's all I have.
Any questions? Old business. Oh, select board concerns.
I don't have any.
Yes.
I just have a quick question about the Hutchins Street project. How is that street going to be closed off for a while? Or
It is.
It is. Okay.
Throughout the winter.
Okay.
Yeah. They've been very, very good about informing us about the impact on the local community for that. But
cool.
it was the safest way to do it. The building is being built in sections. The crane's going to be there, so
Yeah, I figured.
it'll be there for the winter.
And then I just know, like, sometimes I see on Front Porch Forum that people feel like they don't get communication about, like, this road's closed, and I couldn't, I depend on this detour or whatever. Is there, like, do we warn that in the paper? Do we put that, like, where do we tell everyone about it? Just so, like, when people are like, I need to bend your ear about something, that I can be like, well, if you follow this or you follow that, you can find out.
The Route 15 project has impacted everybody in the
Yeah.
county, really, any community
Yeah.
coming through.
Yeah,
And Sarah has been taking their updates. They
Yeah.
send out an update on Fridays.
right.
Sarah takes it on Monday and puts
Right.
it out on our
Yeah.
webpage with a link.
Uh-huh.
As far as our local roads closing, when the Garfield Road project was ongoing,
Yeah,
I would notify dispatch
Yeah.
directly to let them know the road was closed temporarily for the day. And Sarah was putting it out on Front Porch Forum and
Yeah.
on our webpage and
Yeah.
the Facebook page.
Cool.
We do as best we can on the
Yeah.
road closure stuff.
yeah, Yeah.
We don't always get it
yeah,
out enough or
Yeah.
soon enough, but sometimes it's just reacting to one of the situations.
right, yeah. Cool. And then another question I have is who maintains the rail trail, and how long is the bridge going to be out of commission?
Well, I can only answer this because I'm part of a snowmobile club in Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a conversation recently about that. So AOT is going to take over the rail trail and the responsibility of maintenance of it next spring.
So that's a state agency.
The Agency
Okay.
of Transportation. That'll
Uh-huh.
be theirs as of I think it's in the May timeframe.
Okay.
In the meantime, it is still a vast issue.
The whole rail trail.
The rail trail that is currently open for the public.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Uh-huh.
It's not completed yet. AOT is going to take it over and complete the rail trail from east to west.
And so like the section from the end of Morristown, and then that'll connect to St. Johnsbury.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, AOT is going to build out that.
Okay.
But in the meantime, VAST is still required to maintain these bridges.
Yeah.
There is a work project scheduled for this coming Saturday,
Uh-huh.
where there are 5 bridges total in the county.
Wow.
The Skidoo clubs were just notified of this past week. They were given almost no notice, but they are responding with the spirit of which they function. They are redecking. They're being given the materials to put new plywood down on those bridges for this winter season, to include the bridge out here. They will have new bridge decking completed next year before AOT takes them over. So in the spring of the year, when we're typically just picking up our signs from the season and we don't do our projects until later in the summer and early fall, they're going to be building bridge decks on 5 bridges on the rail trail. So it's about 5 years worth of work being required in 5 months of volunteers. So they've been doing a campaign online, Facebook, letting people know they're going to be out there. They'd love to have people come help with bring your screw guns and multiple bit heads, because we don't know what they're going to provide for screws. So anyway.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing to share, I feel like, with the town, because so many people use the rail trail, especially the section in town.
Yep.
And as lovely it is to, make that detour, it's much lovelier to go over the bridge. So, is that something that we could share out on Facebook?
I would be more inclined to share.
On Front Porch Forum.
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to share it next week after it's completed,
Oh,
rather than
okay.
predicting the future.
Oh, I thought you were looking for volunteers.
Oh, certainly. The Skidoo clubs are always looking for volunteers
Right,
to
yeah.
help out.
Yeah.
We could help spread that word for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
I am all set. It sounds to me like the gravel pits creeping ahead a little.
Creeping being the operative word, yes.
Okay.
We're waiting to hear about a hearing date, yes.
Okay. I thought it sounded like it was creeping ahead a little. Old business. None. Here's that. Do we have a motion to go into other business?
Can I make a comment first? September is a really busy month in the clerk and treasurer's office, and I just wanted to publicly thank my staff who even earlier and faster than we ever have. I'm sure town is not really happy to get the bill there early, but I just wanted to publicly thank them. I'm really appreciative of them.
We don't know how hard you all work because it runs so smoothly.
Right. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks
They
for letting
work
us know.
very, very hard. Very hard, for sure. There are 4 motions. We have much to discuss tonight, yes.
Okay, and I think I can pronounce all the words too. I move to go in executive session because I find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss a disciplinary or dismissal action against a public officer or employee. Just keep going? We have to do
No.
each one.
We have to second each one and go on.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Second.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move to go in executive session because I find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss a negotiating or securing a real estate purchase or lease options.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move to go into executive session because I find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 I move to go in executive session because I find that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. I make a motion to enter an executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employees subject to T1 VSA 313A3.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I didn't